Good Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. Today, accused political assassin Vance Belter will be in a federal courtroom for his arraignment. It's been nearly 2 months since the deadly shooting of Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband. Senator John Hoffman and his wife also seriously injured in that attack. Michelle Beck is at the federal courthouse today with what we can expect.
Well, hey guys, good morning to you. I just took a look at the U.S. Courts database and it says Vance Belter will have his arraignment and status conference at 10 a.m. That arraignment means Belter will hear the charges he faces read aloud. Then he'll enter his plea. The 58-year-old is expected to plead not guilty, according to his attorney. He's indicted on 6 counts of murder, stalking, and firearms offenses. Prosecutors unveiled this letter they say Belter wrote by hand. In it, he admits to being the shooter behind the June attacks, which killed Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Now, at this time, we are still waiting on the U.S. Attorney General to determine whether or not prosecutors will seek the death penalty. Back to you.
Breaking news from overnight. We're waiting to hear from St. Paul Police about an investigation at the Midway Saloon right near Allianz Field. This was the scene around 1 a.m. Police had the streets blocked off with crime scene tape outside the bar. Right now, we don't know what happened here, but the area has been cleared. And right now, Minneapolis Fire is investigating after an abandoned house caught fire overnight. This was near North 44th Avenue and North Bryant Avenue around 12:45. The deputy chief told us the fire started inside and quickly spread to the garage and fence. They say the home partially collapsed, but no one was inside or injured. New this morning, the Kremlin says a meeting between Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin has been agreed to in principle and will happen, quote, in the coming days. This would mark the first in-person meeting between the two in Trump's second term. In the same release, Moscow dismissed President Trump's proposal for a summit involving Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Well, now to two very significant deadlines in our nation's capital. One that has just passed, the president's tariff plan as of midnight, now in effect, but not without some last-minute changes and a possible addition. And while today is the eve of a White House ultimatum to the Kremlin demanding a ceasefire in Russia's war with Ukraine, NBC's Jay Gray is tracking it all and joins us now live from Capitol Hill with the latest.
Hey there, good morning. Look, things moving very quickly on both fronts here. The tariffs officially in place for a few hours now, and already the president promising another round of import taxes, while there's new information out of Russia this morning. The Kremlin suggesting a face-to-face meeting between President Trump and President Putin now just days away.
Apple is announcing that it will...
In an Oval Office meeting with Apple CEO Tim Cook, touting the company's promise to invest $600 billion in U.S. manufacturing over the next 4 years, President Trump announces a new tariff on semiconductors and chips with one caveat.
So 100% tariff on all chips and semiconductors coming into the United States. But if you've made a commitment to build, or if you're in the process of building, as many are, there is no tariff.
Specifics, including when the tech tariffs will take place and exactly how U.S. manufacturers will qualify for an exemption, still aren't clear. What is clear, though, is the president's frustration with India.
They're fueling the war machine, and if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy.
Raising the country's tariff from 25 to 50% just hours before the plan goes online as a punishment for buying oil from Russia. Announcing that decision, as Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow ahead of a Friday deadline for increased U.S. economic sanctions if there's no ceasefire with Ukraine. The president on social media calling the meeting highly productive and writing, "Great progress was made," suggesting that there may now be a path to face-to-face meetings with Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky.
That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
A White House official telling NBC News there's no set plan or location, but that the meeting could take place as early as next week.
And overnight, officials at the Kremlin announcing the U.S. and Russia have agreed in principle to a bilateral meeting between President Putin and President Trump. Also noting there's an agreement on a location, though They did not reveal that. A couple of thoughts here. First, there's been no response from the White House to this point, and the president has said clearly he'll only go through with the meeting if President Putin also agrees to sit down face-to-face with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Now, there's been no mention of those potential talks at all from officials in Russia. Jay Gray, NBC News, Washington.
If you're flying United this morning, heads up. Operations are slowly getting back to normal after a tech issue caused a ground stop. Several major airports across the country were impacted by the outage. United says the problem has been resolved, but you should expect some residual delays. We checked this morning and there are 2 United flights impacted, one to Houston that was canceled, another to Denver that was delayed. This morning, we're waiting for a decision from a judge after former Republican State Senator Justin Eichhorn asked to have federal prostitution charges against him dropped. In court yesterday, Eichhorn's defense team says he's being unfairly singled out because he was a lawmaker. They say almost all the other men arrested in the same Bloomington sting operation are facing lesser charges at the state level. Prosecutors argued it was Eichhorn's actions that led to these federal charges, not his title. Developing right now, the Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty says she is not running for re-election. Moriarty was elected to the role in 2022. In a statement released last night, she says she wants to focus on running her office instead of running for office. Her statement included a written message from the Hennepin County Board Chair, who applauded Moriarty's work over the past 2.5 years. But it has not come without controversy, including her handling of the case in which Ryan Londrigan, a Minnesota State trooper, shot and killed Ricky Cobb II during a traffic stop in 2023.
People will speculate that I'm doing this because I don't think I can win re-election. That could not be further from the truth. When I ran last time, I was totally transparent about my priorities.
Moriarty still has about 1.5 years left in office. The Minnesota Supreme Court ruled it is legal for people to own so-called ghost guns that don't have serial numbers. In a 4-2 decision, the court says the state's legal definition of a serial number is too broad, and current state law relies on a federal law that does not require the numbers on privately built guns. It stems from a 2022 case where a driver was arrested for having a gun he put together himself. The majority opinion says a final decision on whether and how to regulate ghost guns falls on the state legislature. There are growing concerns right now about storms hitting up north this weekend, especially in Beltrami County, which is still cleaning up from other severe storms that damaged millions of trees. It's been more than a month since those storms came through the county, and they're still removing debris and downed trees. And this next round, they say, could extend that recovery effort by weeks or months. The preliminary assessment shows they're looking at more than $8 million in damages.
There was an estimate of about 9 million trees, and I think that could actually be pretty conservative based on how dense the forests are, and that there's entire forests that are just completely blown down.
2 months ago, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner released this sketch of a man found unresponsive outside Target Field who later died, hoping the public could help figure out who he was. While he was identified, there are 200 other unidentified cases, and now the state's only forensic anthropologist is pushing to reinvestigate all of them. Dr. Jessica Campbell studies bones and was recently awarded a $500,000 grant for the project over the next 3 years. Some of the cases date back to the 1960s.
I'm in a position that I'm highly specialized. It's very niche being here, but I do things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do in the medical examiner office.
Dr. Campbell credits new DNA testing and genealogy technology to help solve some of the cases, and that just wasn't available decades ago. T-minus 2 weeks until the gates to the Great Minnesota Get-Together open up, and we've just learned it's officially the best state fair in the country. Well, we already knew that, but a USA Today poll proved everyone else knows it too. An expert panel nominated the best state fairs, and then readers voted for the top 10. This is the second time we've won that honor. Minnesota came in first back in 2015 as well. This year, Iowa ranked second, followed by the Wisconsin and Texas state fairs. Stick with us. We have more news and weather coming up after the break.